in addition to poetry, you are involved in other types of writing
Yes.
as well. Talk a little bit about those writings that you've
Okay.
done.
Well, I teach technical communication at Columbus State,
Okay.
and I actually came to technical writing through poetry because, of course, poetry has to be very clear. The language has to be very precise and correct. There is a descriptive element to it, conciseness and brevity, audience relationship. And when I first started, when I was interviewing actually for a technical position, without having any background, I was fortunate enough to have an interviewer who said, well, poetry is this, poetry is that, you should be good for this.
Okay.
And so that was the way that worked out. And I enjoy technical writing. I like the cleanness of it. I like the fact that technical work is actually in the service of the audience.
Okay. And what projects are you currently working on as of now?
Currently, I'm working. Well, I've got about 4 or 5 projects underway. I'm working on a novel called Seven Corners, and it's about a small Ohio village where suddenly, in one May afternoon, everybody disappears, and I don't know what happened to them. That's part of the problem.
Okay.
I'm working on a book on business writing called 13 Theories of Business Communication. I'm working on a biography. And then in the meantime, sort of off at the side, I have about 3 or 4 poems that are in draft stage.
Okay, so you're pretty busy.
I try to keep busy. If you stop writing, it's sort of like a shark that stops swimming.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it. And I know that you're the featured poet for the Columbus Arts Festival. You're one of the featured poets.
One of them, yes.
And is this your first time?
No, actually, I've been doing this for, at least 16, 17 years. Of course, there was a period when the poetry dropped out of the program at the Columbus Arts Festival. But actually, back in 1992, I remember that I was the first place winner presenter during that period, and was on the big stage at 5 o'clock on an afternoon, and the mayor at the time, Buck Reinhardt, was in the audience, and let it be known that he was disgusted by a poem that I had created. That was, of course, 1992 was the 500th anniversary of Columbus, and of course Columbus, the city, was all into this. And I had written a poem about how it was kind of a sad thing that Columbus discovered America, because clearly the whole European culture is insane, and they brought their insanity to the shore. It's kind of a funny poem, but kind of and Buck Reinhardt was not amused at all. He was in the audience. So I always felt that was one of my great accomplishments.
Oh, okay.
I was able to offend the mayor.
That's something to put on a resume.
Yeah.
So, speaking of poems, do you have one in particular that you would like to recite for us?
Yeah, I couldn't recite it. My memory isn't that
Okay.
good, but I can read one.
That's fine.
This is several years ago. I was passing through the grocery store, and I saw a copy of the Weekly World News, which you remember is now defunct. But the Weekly World News had all these wild, improbable stories, and I remember seeing a headline that said, "Piranha kill 15 at outdoor baptism." And I remember thinking to myself, that would be a good line for a poem. Actually, it would be a good title for a poem. And so I went home and actually I wrote this poem. And for about a year and a half, I was writing what I called the tabloid series.
Okay.
And this is one of the poems from that series. And it is called Space Aliens Found Performing in Carnival Freak Shows. In 1920, my great-aunt Jane hopped a midnight freight and ran away from home to sing on the New York stage. She was only 16. The family took her photograph off the grand piano and never again spoke her name. Later, they grew lonely for her voice. At 14, I shimmied down that same drain pipe Jane had used and took off to see the fair. That's where I met the lizard boy from Neptune, the light bulb woman of the moon, a human razor blade from some galactic swirl, and other artists of the weird. All of them had hopped off midnight rockets off their worlds. All artists come from outer space. Like my great Aunt Jane, they're just looking for some place where gravity won't hold them down. So parents, let your children have their voices. Let them have their feathers and their flesh. Let your daughters and your sons have their pens, their paints, their music, and their hearts. Let them tattoo jackals on their thighs and dance with the lawn furniture. Let them drum so loud that the sound shatters watermelons in your gardens. And ask them to play on, because these children come from Mars. Tell them they're welcome here on Earth. Tell them it's good to be strange. Tell them they don't have to hop that freight.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to add?
No, just I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you today.
We appreciate having you here.
Okay.
Appreciate you coming in the rain and dreary day.
Ah, well.
To hear more from Doug Gray and other Columbus Arts Festival poets, please visit writerstalk.org. Until next time, keep writing.